I'm Krista Shabo. This is a requirement for my IL 620 internship in personnel development class. And I'm here with Mike Howard today, and if you'll just take a second to introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Mike Howard. I'm the superintendent of the St. Clair County School System.
Okay. So our professor, Dr. Deidre Robinson, introduced us to Malcolm Gladwell, and he's an author and he's a journalist. He's done a ton of research on hiring practices, and he focuses on these trends in education. And one thing that he really talks about is a mismatch problem. And by that, he's referring to how, sometimes what we're looking for, we don't always find when we're hiring.
Correct.
And a lot of times in education, we really narrow our pool of candidates by saying you have to have certain certificates and you have to have these degrees. And sometimes when we do that, we narrow the pool so much that we kind of eliminate these good candidates that could do some real good for our school system and our students. So the state of Alabama requires teachers to hold these certificates, and sometimes we grant emergency certifications and things like that. But is there something else that our school system could do when we're trying to find effective teachers?
Well, it's an interesting question because you have to meet the requirements of a praxis and all the little things that get teachers certified. And so the State Department wants you to make sure that you have the content knowledge to be able to handle certain things. But they also recognize that with the teacher shortage we're now facing, there are opportunities for other ways. There's a fifth-year program, and there's other type of opportunities to get those emergency certifications. They've actually changed a little bit to where it's granted to a little bit wider audience and those type of things. But I know for me personally, we got to do, if you take all that and put it on the side and you look at what does it mean to be an effective teacher and what are the characteristics of that, you want somebody that has the ability to lead. So these are the extra things you're looking for: ability to lead, the classroom management, forward thinking, and you're hopeful that all those things are encompassed in a future teacher that also is in one of our content areas that we desperately need. And so you can't just throw out the certifications only, because you do want them to make sure that they understand the content knowledge and can deliver that to students. But you also, it's a fine line of pigeonhole yourself into just a certain thing that you can only look for by only having those specific certifications.
Yeah. So have you ever experienced hiring a teacher that doesn't hold a state, maybe teaching certificate, or hasn't completed a fifth-year program?
Yes. Now I've had multiple fifth-year programs. I've never done an emergency certification because according to it, the only way you can emergency certify a teacher is if you have no qualified applicants for that position. So if you have one, you've got to pick the one, even though they could be the worst one and you have a better one over here that you can emergency certify. If you have one, you've got to go with that person, or at least have exhausted all means to have the emergency. But now with the fifth year, I've had quite a few of those, and they've all worked out well.
Yeah.
We work with the local universities that they're a part of to give all the documentation that they have to do, and showing that they're working toward their fifth year degree and also working while they're doing so.
Mm-hmm. So when you said that you have to exhaust, you have to show that there are no qualified candidates, do you think that's something maybe that needs to be looked at? If you're saying, like, I'm gonna hire this candidate and I know they're not what I'm looking for, what my students need and my school needs.
Right.
And you've got this candidate that you know is, but you just know.
Right.
And is that something you think that?
What I would do is you interview both, and we're just talking about two. You interview both, and then on the interview, you show the personnel director, so she can show the State Department that without a shadow of a doubt, this person is certified and holds a certification in this. However, according to all the interviews, the job recommendations, and everything else, this candidate actually meets the needs better than the one who's certified in that area. So let's emergency certify them if that's my only choice, because we still want a great person in the classrooms. And let's emergency certify and let them work toward this degree. And it gives them 2 years now with an opportunity to renew. So used to, you couldn't renew it. You had, once you used that emergency certification, it was over.
Okay.
Now you have a chance to renew it. So
so they have changed a little bit.
Yes,
They're trying to be a little bit more flexible.
Correct.
Okay. So Gladwell also talks about the importance of quality teaching over class sizes. And the first time I heard this, because I've been in schools where we had 30 students in a fourth grade class, and it was just completely overwhelming, really. But all the research he's done says that really, if you have an effective teacher, then class size is not that important. So how do you think the class size influences the effectiveness of a teacher? Because
Well,
I know that we have some schools
Right.
here in St. Clair County that
Right.
have large classes
Correct.
and some that don't.
Well, effective teacher is gonna be an effective teacher no matter what the class size is. But, at the end of the day, what are you wanting more? Do you want the teacher to be effective, or you want the students learning? And obviously, everybody would say we want students learning at the highest level possible. And, I don't necessarily agree with his view on this, because I truly believe, and I have a special ed background, the smaller the group, the more one-on-one support that you can provide your students. And we have to differentiate instruction, we gotta make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our students, top to bottom. And if I have 50 in a classroom, you can't do that. And I go back to our college days, when we're in colleges and we're sitting in a biology class and there's 400 students in there, there's no one-on-one support. And so you're just kind of, one in the midst of a bunch. To me, that was not an effective way to teach, because all they could do is just lecture. There was no one-on-one support. And so I'm a huge proponent of the smaller class sizes, because I believe a classroom of 15 is much easier to manage behaviorally and also provide that differentiated instruction, whereas you have 30 over here, and it's very difficult to do those things.
Yeah, well, I agree. Because like I said, in Jefferson County, I taught fourth grade, and I had 31. That's the most I ever had in fourth grade. And when I came to St. Clair County, I came to second grade, and I had 20, and 11 less students.
Right.
It really did make a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree with you. So I know that you recently traveled to South Korea with Dr. Weiss and some other school superintendents, and y'all were addressing these difficult subject area hires. So can you just share some of the experiences that you had there and some things that you learned that maybe we could implement here?
Right. Well, Dr. Mackey kind of led the group, and he signed the MOU with Providence over there, a memorandum of understanding that once the students get to grad school, they would spend 1 year in Korea, and then they would transfer to an Alabama school to become certified after that 1 year. So they would have an Alabama certification, they would be an Alabama resident, so they become an Alabamian. They speak perfect English, all these are part of the prerequisites for them to be able to do so. So what I did learn on that, so I went with more, not just looking for Korea teachers to help us in the STEM education, I looked of how are they promoting STEM to produce an end result of a lot of science and math teachers, because it's gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
You've gotta instill the love of education for those areas at some point. And so when we went to the education, or the elementary school, they focus on STEAM, a lot on the arts, because they really wanted kids the opportunity to free play, but also to enhance their worldview. In second grade, they start learning the English language, and they have to learn that all the way through 12th grade, so they learn 2 languages by the time they graduate. But then when they get to high school, they gotta learn a 3rd language. So when they graduate high school, they are fluent in 3 languages. We take 2 years of foreign language as a high school students, and we're not fluent in that at all.
Yeah.
And so that's a big difference there, but in the elementary and the middle schools, they were utilizing technology, they were using collaboration groups, they were using project-based learning, they were teaching science, advanced science and advanced mathematics in middle school. They were taking geometry as 7th graders. Geometry, we do that in 10th grade right now. And, that's why they're so much further ahead. But the other thing that I found out there is when they go to the university, they come out as a chemical engineer, but they want to be teachers. They don't care about the money right now, they want the longevity and the long career. Because as soon as they're hired over there, they're tenured immediately. And so they're worried about that career aspect and not the short-term financial gains of being able to join a firm to be a chemical engineer. So they would fall back on being a chemical engineer, which it's a different mindset than what we have. We would go after the money first, predominantly, and then fall back into a teaching career when I got done with that. So those are the biggest things that I took away, and plus, the educators there are valued on the same level as the president of the country. And parents fully supported the educational system, they fully supported the teachers of the school, they didn't question what was going on. It's just a whole different, absolutely. And so those are the biggest takeaways that I had from there.
So this is a big topic that we've talked about in our classes, and just, teachers talk about it amongst other teachers, is teacher burnout, and that's a real problem in education. And, the NEA is releasing data that 40 to 50% of teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years of teaching. So, how does high teacher turnover rate affect schools and the school system as a whole? And what are some things that St. Clair County is doing and trying to implement to support these, new teachers, first year teachers and new teachers at St. Clair County?
Well, consistency is key. And, research studies, just by seeing the more you have a certain teacher integrated level teaching the same students all the time, you have that consistency and you can develop a strong foundation for our students. But if you have a different teacher every year and nothing can be consistent across the board, our students will suffer. And so that's the biggest part about the turnover rate, that, if we can be more consistent, that would help our students immediately. But to be able to retain your quality teachers, you gotta value them first and foremost. You gotta show you value them, and you gotta celebrate their successes, because our teachers do a great job every day. But we get a bad rap when one teacher doesn't do their job, and you can't, the 99% can't be dictated by the 1% that don't do their job effectively. And so that's one thing that we've got to do a better job of on that part, but you've got to support your teachers. And that's one thing that we're trying to do here, and trying to put some things in place. We celebrate now a banquet for Teachers of the Year and Support Staff of the Year. We had a retirement party for those who were leaving, just to show that we appreciated them. At the board meetings, I'm starting to recognize different groups to show that we value them as well. I would wish I could give a monetary value with everything, but just showing that you appreciate teachers and support staff goes a long way.
Yeah.
And
You
of
do
course,
that in the newsletter too.
absolutely.
I've seen where you
Right.
talk about specific teachers and what they've done and
Right.
specific grade levels. So as a classroom teacher, it makes you feel good when you see your name out there, or something you've done,
Right.
Is recognized. So
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
those are good things you're doing too.
And we all, like to be praised.
Yeah.
I do, and, because we get beat up in the media, we get beat up on social media, we get, beat up all the time. And it's good to be recognized by your peers and your superiors saying, you know what, you're doing a good job. And we recognize that you're doing a good job, and we appreciate everything that you do every day.
Mm-hmm.
We have mentor programs, and we do all those things to try to foster an older mentor with a younger mentee, and try to guide them in their path of being a new teacher. So those are the things we try to do. Can we do more? Absolutely, and we're working. But it's a process to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you for meeting with me
Oh,
today.
absolutely, my pleasure.
Thanks.